first in Plumas County, and then she was the school nurse in Nevada City and the public health nurse for Nevada County in the 1930s. She was a lot like Errol McBoyle. She was a county public health nurse with no budget, a school nurse with no staff. But she was in touch with kids, and by that time there were people coming in from places in the country where they've been very hard hit, especially from the Dust Bowl areas and the Southwest. And she saw children without shoes. She saw children who need glasses to perform in class and do their schoolwork. She knew of families that weren't eating. Somehow, she found the money. It came from the PTA, it came from the Methodist Church, it came from the Catholic Church, it came from any place else in town, the Rotary Club or the Lions Club. She was reaching out to everybody and anybody and bringing in this money to take care of these kids. And then something else that was going on was the creeks around here were lined with people living in tents, panning for gold, trying to live the way the 49ers lived. And they could get along all right in the summer and up until this time of year, but they were never ready for that first winter storm. And there were cases of families being snowed in and some very serious cases. Isabel Heffelfinger, with the Salvation Army, especially in Grass Valley, was the person who rose to deal with that. The Methodist Church in Nevada City became the staging area where all kinds of supplies were gathered and were in snow, stages, horse-drawn carts on skis went out to take relief to these people. And that's not all she did. Public health took a big hit in 1919, 1918 in the flu pandemic of that time that killed something like 100 million people worldwide. And in this town, killed over 130. And she brought public health, and when people didn't have much faith in it, she brought vaccinations, she brought tuberculosis clinics, testing of children in school for TB. She had to, in that era, vaccinations were given in private doctors' offices. She knew they had to be good in the school cafeteria. They had to be given at public health clinics, the way we know that they are given today. The doctors didn't want to let go of that function. They wanted people to come to their office for it. She got together with Dr. Carl, and they told the doctors in this county, we are vaccinating in the schools, and they did it. And Isabel Heffelfingers, she saved lives in the 1930s. So Errol McBoyle, Harry Engelbright, C.E. Clinch, a lot of other people created jobs. They made lives. She saved lives. So these are just some of the people whose stories I've had the privilege to tell. And I thank David Comstock very much for putting me on this task. And the book is dedicated to my mother, who's sitting in the front row, who was a little girl who used to roller skate down Main Street Hill and catch herself on a pole to stop. And it was her stories, my grandfather's stories of life here in the 1930s that inspired me throughout the years of work on this. And it was the friendship of so many people in this room who contributed greatly to this book, people who gave interviews, people who did research, people who gave generously, And of course, the ongoing support of the booksellers, the Downtown Association, of this whole great town and this great community. And so I thank you all, and I would very much welcome any questions you might have. And there are some people here who remember the 1930s, and if Helen and Artis and others want to set me straight, I am ready to hear it.
Raise your hand and I'll bring the microphone over to you. Anyone who has, yes, sir.
Thank you for the talk. Do you consider that history is repeating itself?
The parallels between the crash of '29 and what we went through roughly a year ago are so striking. It's very remarkable. The difference is it was a bubble created by stock speculation in the 20s, and ours was a housing bubble. But how the economy reacted, how the stock market reacted, the parallels are just amazing. And the person who speaks really well about this is a professor from Berkeley, Christina Romer, who is the President Obama's chair of this Council of Economic Advisors. She's a scholar of the 1930s. So is Mr. Bernanke at the Federal Reserve. His major academic work has been in the 1930s. What happened in the 30s, to kind of compare it to what happened between October of last year and, say, March or April of this year, in the 30s, the GDP fell by more than 25%. Between October '08 and April '09, it fell by 2%. So you realize how badly we've been hit. In this county, over 10% unemployment. In some parts of California and Kern County, 35% unemployment. Across the country, I think we're now over 10. And of course, in the 1930s, by 1932, at the bottom, over 25% unemployment. So the parallels are striking. I happen to think, because of what was learned from the 1930s, and especially from the work of scholars like Milton Friedman, we understand the monetary dimensions of what happened in 1929 to 1932. There was no clue at the time. No one really had a clue. People understand it now. So I think the fact that we have not had the same experience that they had from 29 to 32 is because people understand what happened in that time and have responded up until this point appropriately. So I don't know if that answers your question. But
Somebody was said a question, I think. Yes, ma'am.
No.
What was your mother's maiden name?
My mother's maiden name was Jackie Hughes, and she's now Jackie McKinney. And don't care about that part. Jackie Hughes. And you went to Hennessy School for a time? Didn't you do a year at Hennessy School? She lived up in Allegheny. Yeah. And she went to several schools in Grass Valley.
Next question. Oh, come on now. Yeah, Harold.
Given all the movement into the area, how was this area? What was the profile that was sent out around the country? How was it disseminated about the Grass Valley, Nevada City area? Was there media coming here? Is it because it was so unique and so robust compared to what else was happening to to diffuse the information about what was happening here, to bring these people up and